I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear.
I, Lyndon Baines Johnson, do solemnly swear.
I, Richard Billhouse Nixon, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
I, William Jefferson Clinton.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear.
To preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Leaders, protectors, history makers. There is one job at the top that guarantees your name in the history books. A job that pledges to defend the Constitution and guard the free world. Freedom, liberty, and justice, the cornerstones of democracy and the oath of the President of the United States. Throughout the storied history of this great nation, many presidents have left their mark from this high office, and the actions they take decide the fate of millions of Americans. The personalities and gestures of each become part of their impenetrable legacy. Join us as we take an in-depth look at the journey of some of the most influential people in the history of humankind. These are the presidents.
This morning, both parties are under mounting pressure. The Republicans over whether they should stay loyal to their maverick president, and the Democrats over whether their priority should be healing the nation as Joe Biden has vowed, or unraveling the legacy of Donald Trump.
When Donald Trump lost the presidential election on January 7, 2021, he left behind a divided and adrift nation in shock after the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol building, which put countless members of Congress' lives in danger and democracy in peril. On January 20th, 2021, after two previous unsuccessful attempts, Joe Biden became the 46th President of the United States of America, and at the age of 78, the oldest president ever to be elected. But for the first time in United States history, a peaceful transition of power did not take place. Taking office in the shadow of Donald Trump, Biden faced a highly divided country and an opposition that viewed him as illegitimate. Biden declared that his ascension was the triumph of not a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy.
We choose science over fiction. We choose unity over division. And we choose truth over lies.
After 4 tumultuous years of Donald Trump, voters hoped that his experienced successor would restore peace and provide a sense of calm and steady leadership. Biden promised to be different, to reverse some of Trump's more controversial policies. Just 2 weeks after the attack on the U.S. Capitol, Biden stood on the building steps for his inauguration and preached about the need for unity and healing.
United, we can and will overcome this season of darkness in America. But while I'll be a Democratic candidate, I will be an American president. I'll work hard for those who didn't support me, as hard for them as I did for those who did vote for me.
As he entered the White House with an expansive agenda, Joe Biden and his administration prepared themselves for a difficult obstacle course. His Build Back Better plan aimed to rescue, recover, and rebuild the country.
Do not scare easily. We never bow. We never bend. We never break when confronted with crisis. No, we endure, we overcome, and we always, always, always move forward.
Here's the deal. Let's get back up. We're decent, we're brave, we're resilient people.
We can't believe again. We're better than this moment. We're better than this president. So get up, take back our country. This is the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity if we do it together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I accept this nomination for President of the United States of America.
Joseph Robinette Biden, born during the Second World War in 1942, spent his childhood in the blue-collar city of Scranton, Pennsylvania, where his father struggled to find a steady job after a series of business setbacks. When Joe was 10, his family moved to Wilmington, Delaware, after his father secured a job selling cars there. At the University of Delaware, he studied history and political science and played football. As a child, Biden had a debilitating stutter and was often mocked by his classmates. During these years, he developed a sharp interest in politics, spurred in part by the inspiring inauguration of John F. Kennedy in 1961. In his junior year at college, Biden went to the Bahamas for spring break, where he met his future wife, Nelia Hunter. Even at such a young age, Joe had high aspirations and wanted to impress. Student Joe told Nelia's mother that he intended to become the President of the United States. In 1965, he was accepted into Syracuse University Law School. Sweethearts Joe and Nelia married the next year in 1966. In 1969, Biden's first son, Joseph, nicknamed Beau, was born, followed by Robert in 1970 and Naomi in 1971. After his graduation from law school in 1968, Joe became an active member of the Democratic Party, and in 1972, he was elected at 29 years old to the U.S. Senate, becoming the 5th youngest senator in U.S. history. Just a few weeks after, a tractor-trailer struck the family's car as his wife and 3 children were driving home from buying a Christmas tree. Nelia and their 1-year-old daughter Naomi died before they reached the hospital. His 2 young sons, Beau and Hunter, were critically injured but survived the wreck. Biden was sworn into the Senate in his son Beau's hospital room.
The truth is, he almost wasn't a senator at all. In 1972, shortly after his improbable victory, but before he took the oath of office, my father went to Washington to look at his new office space. My mom took us to go buy a Christmas tree. On the way home, we were in an automobile accident. My mom, Nelia, and my sister, Naomi, were killed. My brother, Hunter, and I were seriously injured and hospitalized for weeks. I was just short of 4 years old. One of my earliest memories was being in that hospital. My dad always at our side. We, my brother and I, not the Senate, were all that he cared about.
From 1973 to 2009, Joe Biden served a distinguished Senate career. Over the years, he won respect as one of the Senate's leading foreign policy experts, serving as chairman of the Committee on Foreign Relations for several years. In 1977, Joe married his second wife, Jill Biden. They had 1 daughter together, Ashley. By 1987, he'd been on presidential watch lists for years and was already seen as White House material. He ran for the 1988 Democratic presidential nomination, However, he later dropped out of the race after several allegations of plagiarism. One of Biden's biggest achievements was that he co-sponsored the Violence Against Women Act in 1994, which provided $1.6 billion to investigate and prosecute violent crimes against women, specifically domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. "20 years after his first presidential bid, Biden decided to run again for the U.S. presidency in 2008. As he entered the presidential race, he attacked frontrunner Hillary Clinton's plan for the war in Iraq. However, 2008 was still not the right time for Biden. After years of the Bush administration, people in America wanted change, and Barack Obama offered this in the form of being not only the first African American to run for office, but by being bright, articulate, and a symbol for change after years of war in the Middle East.
We are one people. We are one nation. And together, we will begin the next great chapter in the American story with 3 words that will ring from coast to coast, from sea to shining sea. Yes, we can. Thank you, New Hampshire. Thank you.
After garnering only 1% of the total vote and finishing 5th place in the Iowa caucus, on January 3, 2008, Biden ended his presidential bid. But he certainly was not going away. On January 20, 2009, when Obama was sworn in as the 44th U.S. president, Biden became the 47th vice president. The pair were a perfect fit. As vice president, Biden played a leading role in getting the economy back on track. What he was most well known for during his time as vice president was his stance on combating violence against women. Tragically, in 2015, Joe lost his son Beau to brain cancer at the age of 46. Biden had quietly reduced his public schedule to spend more time with him. Beau Biden was, quite simply, the finest man any of us have ever known. Biden wrote in an emotional statement about his son.
Beau would always say, "Dad, look at me, look at me. When they ask about me, smile, Dad. Don't look sad, Dad. No matter what happens, Dad, I'm going to be okay, but you got to promise me, promise me you'll be okay." What he meant by that was he knew we'd take care of the family, but he wanted to make sure that I continued to do the things that I cared so deeply about.
On January 12, 2017, President Obama presented Biden with the Presidential Medal of Freedom with distinction, the nation's highest civilian honor. Obama called Biden the best vice president America's ever had, and a lion of American history, and told him he was being honored for faith in our fellow Americans, for your love of country, and a lifetime of service that will endure through generations. As 2016 came, Biden did not remain quiet during the campaign seasons, publicly flagging up his disagreement with many of the policies of the Republican presidential nominee, Donald Trump.
We will make America safe again. And we will make America great.
Biden critiqued Trump's proposal to temporarily ban Muslims from entering the United States, as well as his stated intent to build a wall along the border with Mexico. During an interview at the 2016 Democratic National Convention, Biden asserted that moral and centered voters would not vote for Trump.
I stand here to tell you that I have no doubt, none whatsoever, that in the Trump administration there will be no diminution of support as a consequence of this transition. Even if the new administration were inclined to reduce the commitment, which it is not, Congress would never let it happen. The American people would never let it happen.
Joe Biden continued to speak out against Trump once he was in office, especially questioning comments Trump had made about climate change, health care, immigration, and LGBTQ rights. On April 25, 2019, Biden delivered the expected news that he was running for president in 2020. In his presidential announcement video, Biden openly criticized Trump's leadership.
It was there on August of 2017 we saw Klansmen and white supremacists and neo-Nazis come out in the open. And that's when we heard the words of the President of the United States that stunned the world and shocked the conscience of this nation. He said there were, quote, some very fine people on both sides. Very fine people on both sides? With those words, the President of the United States assigned a moral equivalence between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it.
Joe's slogan for the 2020 race was, "Our best days still lie ahead," and he wanted America to build back better. The original ambitious $3.5 trillion Build Back Better social plan was designed to cement Biden's reputation as a reforming president. It sought to make the largest nationwide public investments in social, infrastructure, and environmental programs since the Great Depression-era policies of the New Deal.
We can overcome 4 years of Donald Trump, but if we give him 8 in the White House, we'll forever and fundamentally change the character of this nation, in my view. And that's why we have to win this time. That's why we have to take back the White House. President Trump inherited an economy from Obama-Biden administration that was given to him, just like he inherited everything else in his life.
The main challenge for Biden was to undo many of Trump-era's policies, as well as restoring America's reputation with regards to foreign policy.
And they know that if we give this man another 4 years in the White House, he'll forever and fundamentally change the character of this nation. We can't let this happen. That's why, from the moment I entered this race, I did say we're in the battle for the soul of this nation. And we are.
This isn't just another election. This is well beyond our party. This is about ending an era of, ending an era, God willing, of a president who, look, this is bigger than any of us. It really is. We cannot allow Donald Trump to be reelected to the United States presidency again.
A new issue surfaced in September 2019, with the revelation that President Trump allegedly sought help from Ukraine to boost his chances of re-election in 2020, and had pressured the Ukrainian government into investigating Biden and his son Hunter.
That there's an alternative theory of how this crime was committed, and the crime was committed by Democrats. And as his lawyer, it's my obligation to establish those facts.
I don't care about Biden's campaign, but I do care about corruption. His campaign, that's up to him. Politics, that's up to them. I don't care about politics. This is about corruption. And if you look and you read our Constitution and many other things, I have an obligation to look at corruption. I have an actual obligation and a duty.
I wonder why he's so worried about me. It's been amazing. He spent between $12 and $15 million running negative ads against me.
Biden called Trump's actions an abuse of power and said he would support impeachment if the president did not cooperate with Congress, a topic that took on additional urgency when House Speaker Nancy Pelosi ignited impeachment proceedings that same day. On August 11, 2020, Biden announced Kamala Harris as his vice presidential running mate. Choosing Harris as his running mate mirrors Obama's decision to pick Biden in 2008. She balanced Joe out.
It's going to be about working to regain the trust of Americans and understanding that they have a right to have a government and to have leaders in this country who see them and care about them and have some curiosity about their circumstance in life and their needs, be it for their family, their neighborhood, or their community, or their country.
At the time of the 2020 elections, many Americans were nostalgic for the previous Obama administration. Biden, as vice president through these years, offered a lot of the voters comfort.
It's not enough to want to do well. You have to turn in the essay. You have to do the reading. You have to deliver on the promises you make. Joe wrote and passed the Violence Against Women Act when no one thought it could be done. He stood up to the NRA twice and won. He secured those last votes for the Affordable Care Act. He has spent his entire career bringing people together, building bridges, delivering on promises that he can make.
My husband has seen his share of bullies and of trials and of tragedies, but it's never made him feel cynical, never made him want to use his power for personal gain. Instead, it's made him more committed to serving others. A leader who brings people together, not tears families apart like we've seen at our borders. A president that you can be proud of, who believes that our best days are ahead of us. That's my husband, Joe Biden.
We are a diverse country, yes. And some people would suggest that in diversity, when there is a diverse population, one cannot achieve unity. I reject that notion because this is my belief. Yes, we are diverse, and we have so much more in common than what separates us.
The main threat to Biden was Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who had a huge following and appealed to the further left side of the Democratic Party. But in August, Biden officially became the 2020 Democratic presidential nominee. His acceptance speech won praise from the far left and right.
I accept this nomination for President of the United States of America. But while I'll be a Democratic candidate, I will be an American president.
In this election, we have a chance to change the course of history.
Here and now, I give you my word. If you entrust me with the presidency, I will draw on the best of us, not the worst.
So let's fight with conviction. Let's fight with hope. Let's fight with confidence in ourselves and a commitment to each other.
And now history has delivered us to one of the most difficult moments America's ever faced. Four historic crises, all at the same time.
We will tell them what we did.
And this is a battle we will win, and we'll do it together. I promise you. I'll be an ally of the light, not the darkness.
From that moment, Trump attempted to cast doubt over Biden's abilities, claiming that he was suffering from dementia and that he was taking performance-enhancing drugs in the primaries.
America should not take lectures on racial justice from Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe.
It was also suggested that throughout the race, that Trump and his party would create false stories to divert attention away from him.
The first presidential debate took place on September 29, 2020. The 90-minute showdown was called a dumpster fire, a train wreck, and was widely criticized as being a low point in the U.S. presidential politics. Amid the acrimonious exchanges, Trump interrupted Biden 71 times.
I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just want to make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
God, I want to make
Mr.
sure.
Mr. President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
would you answer that
because
question?
the question is radical left. Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe? Who's on your list?
Right. Gentlemen, I think
this
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the court.
We have
not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on.
In the final presidential debate, Biden came out swinging, making a case that over 222,000 Americans had died from coronavirus, in large part because of the Trump administration's response to the deadly disease. In contrast to the first debate, the microphones of both candidates were muted at selected times.
Ounce of fear and frustration and discouragement. Now is a time to show up and vote like this country depends on it, because it does.
Election night, November 3rd. The election night ended without a clear winner, as many state results were too close to call, and millions of votes remained uncounted. However, by November 7th, the country had spoken. The majority that decided 4 more years of Donald Trump would be unimaginable. But he refused to go quietly. With no concessions in sight or evidence of that matter, Trump took to the microphone at a press conference to declare the election fraudulent, a catalyst for chaos to come.
Under unprecedented assault, unlike anything we've seen in modern times. An assault.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace.
Several prominent Republicans denounced Trump's claims of electoral fraud, saying they were damaging to the election process, dangerous to political stability, and undermining democracy, while others supported his demand for transparency. When Congress officially declared Joe Biden as the election victor on November 7, 2020, 51.3% of American voters heaved a sigh of relief, along with much of the world, even though a large number of Republicans still sided with Trump's version of events.
My fellow Americans yesterday once again proved that democracy is the heartbeat of this nation. Just as it has been the heartbeat of this nation for 2 centuries. And even in the face of a pandemic, more Americans voted this election than ever before in American history. Over 150 million people cast their votes. I think that's just extraordinary.
Making Donald J. Trump a one-term president after 4 years of unrest in the White House. Biden promised to restore political normalcy and a spirit of national unity to confront raging health and economic crisis. Mr. Trump is only the 3rd elected president since World War II to lose re-election, and the first in more than a quarter century. Biden entered his first year with a focus on ending the pandemic, expanding health care, reforming immigration, stronger action on climate change, raising the minimum wage, sorting out college debt, and implementing higher taxes for the rich.
We did it. We did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.
Joe Biden promised to build back better, acting as a seasoned and steady hand in an uncertain, dangerous world.
It's time to put away the harsh rhetoric, lower the temperature, see each other again, listen to each other again. And to make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as our enemies. They are not our enemies, they are Americans. The Bible tells us, to everything there is a season, a time to build A time to reap and a time to sow, and a time to heal. This is the time to heal in America. All the Bidens, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for us. So, folks, here's the deal. Let's get back up. We're decent, we're brave, we're resilient people. We can believe again. We're better than this moment. We're better than this president. So get up, take back our country. This is the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity if we do it together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Armed with an ambitious plan for his first 100 days in office, Biden and his Vice President Kamala Harris first planned to reverse some of the actions taken by the Trump administration over the past 4 years, such as the ban on transgender people serving openly in the military, which Biden repealed in January 2021. Despite a bitter presidential race, Biden began his term with 56% of the country approving of his performance, having won more than 80 million votes, more than any other U.S. presidential candidate in history.
But just look at the joy on the other side of the Great Divide. Liberal Americans for 4 years have been emotionally exhausted, shocked, even embarrassed by the Trump era. Now there is a sense of monumental relief.
But in his first year, he had a startling slide in fortunes, and his popularity started to fade.
You know, we can't let up now. The vaccines are safe. I promise you they're safe. They work. Everybody in America 16 years old and older is now eligible to get vaccinated for free now. And we're working with leaders around the world to share more vaccines and boost production to make sure every country has the vaccines they need. And if we can get this done, we won't have to miss another moment.
So go get your vaccine and help all of us get back to the lives and the people we love.
We can do this. We really can. So thank you and God bless you. Get vaccinated. It's safe.
Mr. Biden took office as the U.S. economy was beginning to emerge from a year of pandemic lockdowns. But the COVID-19 pandemic was far from over. Team Biden arrived at the White House with a $1.9 trillion plan to beat the virus, the American Rescue Plan, including a widespread vaccination campaign and a massive increase in testing. From his first day in office, Biden set a different tone from his predecessor. He installed an experienced team and got vaccines out to millions of Americans in a matter of months. On July 4th, 2021, the president declared the U.S. had gained the upper hand against this virus. However, within weeks, the declaration of victory looked silly as vaccinations plateaued and the fourth wave of COVID tore through the country. The Omicron variant, while milder than previous variants, sent cases surging again. Nevertheless, through the American Rescue Plan, over 600 million doses were administered, leading to 65% of U.S. adults being fully vaccinated. However, despite overwhelming evidence of the effectiveness and safety of vaccinations, a growing number of people were reluctant to receive recommended vaccinations or refused them altogether. As of November 2022, COVID-19 had claimed the lives of more than 1 million people in the U.S., the highest recorded national death toll from the global pandemic. America's pandemic response was one of the most generous in the world. On his first day in office, Biden issued an executive order to end Trump's controversial travel Muslim ban. He also pledged to abolish the policy that separated parents from their children at the U.S.-Mexican border, and his administration began to reunite some families. He also promised to protect the Dreamers, people brought illegally to the U.S. as children who were permitted to stay under the Obama-era policy, as well as ensure they are eligible for federal student aid. The number of minors held in detention centers has plummeted. But since Biden took office, the U.S. southern border has seen a record-breaking number of migrants that has created disquiet and new challenges. In 2021, there were almost 2 million encounters between migrants and U.S. border officers, including 165,000 involving minors. Biden's plan to offer legal status to an estimated 11 million undocumented people in the U.S. has stalled in Congress. Long-term reforms remain elusive, and many Trump-era policies remain in effect. When the U.S. president was on the campaign trail 2 years ago, he promised that the United States would re-enter the landmark Iran nuclear deal, which Trump had scrapped in 2018. But nearly 2 years into Biden's term, however, talks to rejoin the deal have failed. Instead, Iran has enriched more uranium than ever before and elected a hard-line new president, Ebrahim Raisi, who is less likely to engage in constructive dialogue with the West.
Let me be clear. Any American who wants to come home, we will get you home. But make no mistake, this evacuation mission is dangerous. It involves risks to our armed forces, and it's being conducted under difficult circumstances. I cannot promise what the final outcome will be, or what it will be, that it will be without risk of loss. But as Commander-in-Chief, I can assure you that I will mobilize every resource necessary. And as an American, I offer my gratitude to the brave men and women of the U.S. Armed Forces who are carrying out this mission.
In August 2021, Biden created new problems for himself and was widely criticized when, in continuation to Trump's deal with the Taliban, the U.S. withdrew its last troops from Afghanistan without leaving any residual force, marking the end of the United States' longest war. It caused public upset as Biden failed to account for how quickly the country would fall. In the chaotic final days during the evacuation of thousands of Afghans, a terror attack killed as many as 170 civilians and 13 American service members at Kabul International Airport. ISIS claimed responsibility for the attack. The Afghan forces collapsed and the Taliban surged back to power, 2 decades after U.S.-led forces toppled their regime.
These ISIS terrorists will not win. We will rescue the Americans in there. We will get our Afghan allies out, and our mission will go on.
In November 2021, Biden signed a $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill into law, unlocking funds for transportation, broadband, and utilities. The House also narrowly passed a pared-back version of his Build Back Better bill, which included universal preschool, large child care subsidies, and government negotiation over some drug prices. However, the bill, as well as his voting rights legislation, has remained stalled in the Senate, with few prospects for passage. As Biden is entering his 3rd year, some say the plan seems to be dead. Joe Biden had an eventful first year as president. He entered his 2nd year with several problems, facing low approval ratings for his handling of the economy, as inflation continued to ravage the country. The pandemic brought unemployment to its highest rate since the Great Depression, and businesses struggled to stay afloat amid lockdowns and labor shortages. Employment rebounds somewhat over 2021, with 6.4 million jobs added, and jobless claims dropped to a near 50-year low. A historic economic recovery, with Biden overseeing more job growth in his first year than any president since Jimmy Carter. But other economic headwinds have arisen instead. Millions of Americans have quit their jobs. The labor shortage is contributing to global supply chain problems and rocketing inflation. Higher prices will likely last well into the president's third year. In early 2022, oil prices soared to the highest level in 7 years, as the Russian invasion of Ukraine caused global oil markets to surge. In March, Biden announced a ban on Russian oil imports into America. This has kept adding to popular discontent. Biden has pledged support for Ukraine, assuring the ally of America's unprecedented support in its war with Russia. The United States is the largest single country donor of humanitarian assistance to Ukraine. At the beginning of summer 2022, Joe Biden's presidency was on the brink of failure. The economy was teetering on the precipice of recession. The Democrats were speculating in the press about who else they could nominate for president in 2024. However, the situation quickly changed when, on July 31, 2022, the Biden administration scored a major victory against the al-Qaeda terrorist group with the killing of leader Ayman al-Zawahiri in a drone strike. This was a landmark moment in the fight against the group responsible for the 9/11 terrorist attacks.
Go, bro. There you go. Right there. Once the rope goes over your head, you're done. Hands on, everybody. Hands on, everybody.
On Friday, June 24, 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, the landmark piece of legislation that made access to abortion a federal right in the United States. The decision dismantled 50 years of legal protection and paved the way for individual states to ban abortion rights. In August 2022, the U.S. President signed the executive order to protect travel between states for abortion. It was the second executive order Biden had signed regarding abortion rights in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision.
4 months since the Dobbs decision, but we no longer have to imagine the chaos and the heartache it's causing. In just 4 months, abortion bans have gone into effect in 16 states. And there's so much confusion and uncertainty that doctors and nurses fear they could face criminal charges for just doing their job responsibly. I want to repeat it again. The only sure way to stop these extremist laws that are put in jeopardy women's health and rights is for Congress to pass a law.
On August 16th, the U.S. Senate passed the Inflation Reduction Act, an enormously consequential bill that includes nearly $400 billion in clean energy investments and will lower the cost of living for America's families, all while fighting inflation and reducing the deficit.
This year alone, just this calendar year, okay? This is official. The Democrats and that guy Biden and that vice president came along and reduced the federal debt by $1.4 trillion. We cut it in half.
the largest debt reduction in American history. We cut the deficit in half.
Biden also recommitted the U.S. to the global fight against climate change by rejoining the Paris Agreement, which Trump had left in 2017. One of his major long-term accomplishments may be his prolific appointment of judges. He has named more in his first year than any president since Ronald Reagan, including Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who became the first black woman to serve on the court. Following the horrific shooting in Uvalde, Texas, that killed 19 children and 2 adults at an elementary school, President Biden signed into law the first major gun safety reform in nearly 3 decades on June 25, 2022. But will it be enough to end the rising amount of children who suffer injury or death from gun violence?
Insane that we allow an 18-year-old to go in and buy an AR-15. What the hell did we think he was going to do with that?
A few months later, Biden attended the annual national vigil honoring the victims of gun violence, ahead of the 10th anniversary of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, in which 26 people were killed, including 20 children between the ages of 6 and 7.
To all of you here tonight, it's under different circumstances, but I know a little bit what the loss feels like. It'll be an anniversary on the 18th of this month. I lost my wife and daughter and nearly lost my 2 sons when a tractor trailer broadsided them. And it's not long after that, an anniversary of losing my son. I know that feeling. Everyone's different, but I know that feeling. You know, it's like a black hole in the middle of your chest you're being dragged into, and you never know if there's ever a way out. And what I admire so much about all of you is you show up and remember. So I call on Democrats and mainstream Republicans and independents to come together. We can meet this moment. We can meet it together. I truly believe we're just getting started. I've never been more optimistic about America's future. I mean it sincerely. We just have to remember who in God's name we are. We're the United States of America. And there's nothing beyond our capacity if we work together. So vote, vote, vote. Get out the vote. Win. Vote, 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 vote.
At the midterm elections on November 17, 2022, the altered political landscape led to the Republicans clinching a majority in the House of Representatives. This will shape the 2024 presidential race and will spell trouble for the administration of the president when it comes to introducing and passing laws over the final 2 years of his term. As of December 2022, in the midst of a faltering economy and trouble abroad, President Joe Biden is facing a decline in support from the American people. Some say his presidency has failed in its central task, to unite an unruly America. In a period of historic crisis, voters are widely questioning his capabilities. However, Joe Biden has repeatedly expressed his optimism about America's future, saying, "There is simply nothing beyond our capacity to get done if we do it together." What Biden has accomplished is substantial. The only question now is whether the country can, as Biden put it, come together better than it has so far, because a lot of people's lives and futures depend on it.
And even though my Republican friends in Congress seem to be hoping for a recession, they were very disappointed. They were very disappointed yesterday. The GDP report showed the economy's growing. It's growing. In fact, the economy grew 2.6% last quarter. And although it may not feel like it to everyone, but people's incomes went up last quarter more than inflation went up. So economic growth is up, price inflation is down, real incomes are up, and gas prices are down. And by the way, exports are also up.
Joe Biden launched his campaign back in 2020 by claiming his mission was to restore the soul of America and keeping the nation afloat, mainly undoing his predecessor's work. With that higher mission in mind, the president is both succeeding and struggling to address these simultaneous crises, preserving a fragile democracy and restoring national unity. His theory has been that a more traditional president can right what's wrong in the country and bring people together. It is still to be determined if Biden achieved what he had set to achieve. The best chance Biden has to retain Capitol Hill is to act now and reboot his presidency. Perhaps the one saving grace has to come from what has been a core theme of his 5-decade career: patience. As his second year turns to his third, Joe Biden may have one final opportunity to demonstrate unity. How he pursues that could make all the difference.
Because we lead not only by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. That is the history of the journey of America. And God willing, as love and hope and light join in the battle for the soul of the nation. And this is a battle we will win, and we'll do it together. I promise you. With passion and purpose, let us begin, you and I together, one nation, under God, united in our love for America, united in our love for each other. For love is more powerful than hate, hope is more powerful than fear, and light is more powerful than dark. This is our moment. This is our mission. We are America, second to none, and we own the finish line. Don't forget it. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Come on. We're America.